I'm standing here with Emil Tyberg from LNU University in Växjö in Sweden. First of all, welcome. It's really nice having you here and thank you for taking the time for this short interview we're having.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure being here.
For the audience who probably won't know you, can you give us a short hint of who you are and why you're here at PHTG?
Well, I work at LNU University as an English lecturer. I teach mainly those who are going to become teachers, both at primary school level but also at high school level. I'm the coordinator of English teaching for future teachers at LNU University, and I'm here this week to both teach students of English here at PHTG, but also to meet you and to discuss and have a look at your technical facilities here.
Okay, and it's not the first time that you're visiting the campus, right?
No, I've been here 5 times now. I made contact with Gerrit Jarrits at your English department and international office a number of years ago now, and I've been here a number of times, and teachers from here have been at LNU as well. So we have quite good connections between our 2 universities now.
So I guess you have seen and discussed a lot here at this campus. Is there something, are there some things you would say they're the most remarkable or let's say even surprising when you are thinking about your exchange here at PHTG?
Yeah, what really makes it interesting to come here every time is the sizes of our 2 universities. For example, that you are quite a small university, you are specializing in teacher training, whereas LNU University has around 30,000 students. We specialize in many things. We even have a sailors academy, and we have education for future nurses, and we have economy and finances and natural sciences, etc. But teacher training is a very big program at our university. But the size of our university can be both an advantage and a problem, and I see many advantages with being the small teacher training university that you are, and there are things here that I for sure want to take with me home, and I'm inspired by things you do here.
And what would you say, what could be like the most, or let's say the biggest differences between your way of teacher education and our way of teacher education here? From an organizational point of view, I would say that is the major difference, that since we are such a big organization, we have a faculty which doesn't really have any members of staff included, but instead we have a teacher training which is just a board of people who then buy various courses from other faculties of the university, which means that the distance between those who actually decide and the actual teaching and the students is quite big at our university. Whereas here I get the impression that the distance between deans and heads of department and the actual teaching and the students is not that big, and that actually makes it possible to work in a totally different way. That is at least the impression I get here. We can very often discuss and be mad at the fact that it takes so long for us at the university to get our voices heard at the top of the organization, and that is for sure a disadvantage from an organizational point of view. So that would be my first impression of comparing the 2 universities. And is there something we might miss because we are such a small institution? Are there some perks of being a much bigger institution like the LNU?
I can see, for example, within internationalization that we have we have an office with I don't know how many people are employed there, but where we have experience of working with universities all over the world. Just in Japan, I think we have between 15 and 20 exchanges, which opens up a greater variety of exchanges. And we also have the possibility of people working between faculties with people who do not work with teacher training, and we can get influenced by them. It is also sometimes a great advantage to actually work. I work within the Faculty of Arts and Humanities, where I mainly work with other language teachers, which makes it easy for me to keep up with the latest trends within English and the other languages, for example, where I can see that in universities where teachers mainly work with teacher training, the subject knowledge comes in second place. And of course there are advantages with both systems, but I can for sure see that it's an advantage for me to work within an English department where I also have researchers who are not mainly interested in teacher training, but in researching the language and the literature of English.
All right, so we see there are a lot of differences between the smaller and the bigger institution, and we see like the advantages and the disadvantages. And you've been here, or you will be here for a few days, and you've already been here for a few days in the past. What would you say, what are the most interesting insights you could get out of discussions? Is it something you personally and also the LNU University can take from this exchange? As an overall idea I get every time, and it doesn't really matter where I go in the world, one of the most the greatest impact I get from all kinds of international exchanges is that we do things in very similar ways in the classroom. When I teach English here, for example, for future primary school teachers, we have very similar methods and content, both in Sweden and in Switzerland, but also if I go to Japan or wherever in the world, we have a very similar ways of looking at things. And that is what I find the most interesting with international relations, to come out and see how we're actually working towards the same aim. So that would be my overall impression of being here, to see colleagues who actually share the same ideas about how to teach English from an academic point of view. But aren't also the differences sometimes the even more interesting parts? Like, for example, I also visit LNU University, and I was really impressed about the way how you teach at the institution. The keyword here could be distance learning.
Yeah.
For me, it seemed like you're much more advanced in that.
Yeah, I'm not too sure that we are more advanced, but we have to work in a different way, having in mind that just the municipality where Växjö is bigger than the whole of Thurgau. Many of our students come from places 200 kilometers away. With the COVID situation, that has changed people's mindset a lot. We now have a situation where in classes where normally 100% would show up, today only 30 to 50% show up. We got used to, and we were used to, working with distance teaching and distance learning before the COVID situation. We had a great number of distance courses where students actually never showed up on campus. The COVID situation made it possible for us, but also necessary for us to actually integrate distance learning into our classrooms on campus, so that we could have students who were on campus and others who were at home, and we were supposed to broadcast live actually from our classrooms using just very simple technology, our own computers and a little camera. And that has made us better at using technology, but at the same time, many teachers, together with me, we feel that we haven't developed after that. We were thrown into an emergency situation. Everyone thought, even at national political level, it was said from the education minister that just open up your computer, turn on Zoom, and everyone can follow your teaching. But if we want to teach according to ideas that we don't just lecture, then how do you do that if half your group sit at home, half of them are in the classroom, and just the preparations for such a class can take half an hour to an hour longer than a normal class. So we are still there, you know, trials and errors in working with this. I just got evaluations from a group of students where about half of them said, why don't you make more of the teaching obligatory on campus, you know, so that everyone is actually there taking part. Half of them wrote, why don't you always have a camera on so that we can sit at home following from at home. So it's quite difficult now that we try to be both. We try to be both a campus university where students live on campus, they come to class, but we also want the students who live out in the forests. I say forest now, but it actually means in little cities around our region, to be able to follow. But the question is, should we let them follow from at home, or should we actually demand that they be in the classroom?
Right,
and we are not there yet.
Because a lot of people say, that's progressive. This could be the future of education, the future of learning and teaching, doing everything in distance learning. Like the pandemic situation taught us that we can handle this, but because you're much more experienced with it in Sweden anyway, would you say this is the future, or what are the disadvantages of focusing on distance learning?
I would say that in Sweden we are quite good at distance learning when it comes to teaching distance only. Let's say we can offer a course that is for students who live all around Sweden, all around the world, without any of them coming into campus. We're quite good at that. We are quite good at teaching on campus. But now, having in mind that we have a lack of money and everything, to try and make it possible to have both campus education and distance education at the same time, I always tell my bosses and other people who ask that question that yes, I'd be prepared to teach in a more blended way if you give me the tools for it. But so far we have studios for live broadcasting and everything. We have very good classrooms for teaching on campus, but we don't have the hybrid classrooms yet. Only a few of them, and it's very much up to the faculties to decide whether we should have them or not, because they cost a lot of money. And I'd say that at our university we need to decide soon if we want to have good education where people can follow both from the classroom and from at home, unless we want to go back to the old way of doing distance education with recorded lectures that we just put on a homepage and people can watch them from there.
So as far as I know your position, you prefer learning and teaching in presence, right?
Yes. I prefer a combination of watching lectures, watching other relevant clips from TED Talks and things like that, coming to class, discussing, having a mixture of. Very often my students ask me, was this a lecture or a workshop or a seminar? And I say, I don't care. It was all of them. Because if you come to class, you're supposed to be able to feel free to ask questions, for the teacher to actually take a detour around something else that wasn't on the program for today. Because being a teacher is being someone who is constantly exposed to things that appear. It's so complex that also our teaching cannot be streamlined in a way that you have a lecture, you go to a seminar, you hand in a paper. There's so much more to it than that. And the technology is there today, so we can use it also to bring in people to take part in such teaching from the forests of our region. But we don't have it yet at the university. And that is something that I've seen here today, that you are a step closer to actually being able to use technology in a more relevant way than we are. So that could also be something that I see as something that is an advantage to the small university here, that you have the know-how here, and you have, I presume, shorter distances between leadership and the actual teaching. that I would like to see more of at our university.
Well, Emil, thank you very much for this insight. Before we enter this discussion, can you give us a last suggestion? What could we do to improve our teacher education here at PHTG?
I would say that you should go on keeping an open mind towards international contacts. And just like you've been to Växjö and Kalmar, you've seen how we work. That has triggered something in you. I come back here every now and then because I see things here that that will trigger me and that will make my teaching better. That is actually something I'd like to stress, that we go on in our cooperation together to learn from each other and to go here and come back with new ideas and things that we can make improve our own organizations at home.
All right. Emil, thank you very much for this exquisite exchange.
Thank you very much for having me.